Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone. I hope you all are doing good. This is Dr. Anganshan Gupta. I'm an assistant professor with the Department of Management with the Vishwavidyapeetham. This is going to be our 14th lecture, or to be precise, this is our last lecture. So today we will discuss about public good and private good. And till now, in our last 13 exams, we have discussed on some basic concepts of microeconomics. And in our last lecture, we have discussed about you know externalities, economic externalities, um, and how we can identify the efficient outcome, and when we have economic externalities based on production or consumption, and they can be either positive or negative. Positive means where um, you know social benefit is more than the social cost, and negative is where cost is more than the benefit. So why I'm repeating this thing, because we'll require to remember this point when we discuss about different types of goods. So when different types of goods are basically identified by two characteristics. One is excludability, and the second is rivalry in consumption. Now, what is excludability? A person can be prevented from using it. That means it basically connects with the paying a price or a charge. When a person is being charged, that means only those who are being charged a fee or a ticket or something, that means or a price, that means only those persons who are paying for it will be able to use this. So that means excludability. Mostly it connects to the paying the price and using something. Those who are not paying, they are not using, or they are prevented from using. See, if I ride a bus, I need to buy a ticket to get a ride in the bus. If I go to a cinema hall, I need to buy a ticket, right? If I want, say, ice cream, I need to buy it. If I want a haircut, I need to pay the barber in the salon. So if the person is not paying, they will not get those services or the goods. The second one is rivalry in consumption. It essentially means that one person's use diminishes other people's use. That means if I use something, that declines your consumption. Say, again, there are 100 seats for in a cinema hall, and I have bought a ticket. Now only 99 others can see it. If I have bought tickets for 4 of my family members, then only rest 96 can watch the movie. That means when I am using, or I am booking a portion of it, I am buying 4 tickets. That means the others, they have a lesser chance to watch the movie, right? If I buy, say, I take all my students to that movie on game theory, on the life of John Nash, The Beautiful Mind. I decided that I will take all my students. And what happens if I have 20 students? All 20 students we go for this movie, and then if there are 100 seats, all the 20 seats are booked, and only 80 seats are available for others. So if I use something, if that diminishes other people's use, then there is a rivalry in consumption. I repeat, excludability is if one person can be prevented, it can be anyone, can be prevented from using something on certain criteria, on certain characteristics, like paying a price or being eligible to use something, you know to drive a car, I have to be 18 years old, right? In India. So that means there is an excludability. Not it is not available for everyone. But when we discuss about this public good, private good, then basically we bring excludability against the price. And then the rivalry in consumption means someone is using. That means you are taking away the consumption chance of someone else, or the other persons, right? So now there are four types of goods. If we can create such a table where we have these conditions, rivalry in consumption and excludability, and it is yes no for rivalry and consumption and yes no for excludability. So I have four components, right? So one, the first product type of commodity is a private good, where a person can be excludable as well as there is a rivalry in consumption. That means if there is an ice cream store, and if that person sells 20 ice creams, and I go and buy an ice cream. So naturally, the moment I go and buy an ice cream, now there are only 19 ice creams. So on one is already out of the supply, right? It is not available anymore, right? So there is a rivalry in consumption. Similarly, if the ice creams are a paid product, that means I need to pay and buy that ice cream, or to buy an ice cream I need to pay. That means there is an excludability. If someone who is not paying, they cannot use ice cream. The same thing can happen for clothing. When you go and buy a dress, you can only buy it when you pay for that, right? And probably there is only, say, your size medium, and there are only four those shirts medium size. This shirt medium, only four are there. But now the moment I buy one or I buy two, you know then the available number is lesser, so there is a rivalry in consumption. And the moment I am paying and buying it, there is an excludability. So where a product, a commodity, a good can be excludable as well as there is a rivalry in consumption, then that particular type of good is known as private good. Then that particular type of good is known as private good. Rivalry in consumption, I use, so there is a limited chance for someone else. And excludability, I pay and I use. Those who cannot pay, they do not use. Next, just the polar opposite is public goods, where there is no excludability, no rivalry in consumption. Okay, before coming to the public good, I will take two other examples for this private good. Is congested toll roads. One is toll roads. That means you need to pay the toll charge, the toll fee, to to drive on that particular road. So one is excludable. If I do not want to pay the toll tax or the toll fee, I cannot take my car on that road, number one. So that means it is excludable. Only those who pay the toll fee, they can take their car on that road, number one. Number two, rival in consumptions. That it's a congested one. It's a high traffic ones, right? So it's not that the moment there is a high traffic, the moment I take my car, so that means there is more congestion, and the other cars, I am blocking some space and space of other cars. So therefore, the moment in a congested toll road, in a busy traffic, but where you need to pay a toll, the moment you are taking your car there, you are making it more busy, and then there is a higher rivalry in consumption. It is already busy, and when you are taking your car, then you are increasing the rivalry, you are increasing the competition to consume that, right? The same happened for crowded paid hospital. If you are going to a private hospital where you need to pay for every service you take, you need to pay for that, and quite high, private hospitals. And if it is also very crowded, it is very popular, and there is getting a bed is extremely difficult, and in those kinds of hospitals, One is you need to pay for their services, that is a excludability condition. And crowded, that is I go now and I get like I have a say chest pain and I need a surgery. If it is not emergency, they can say that, see, I do not have a you need a couple of days hospitalization or 3 days hospitalization. Now we do not have bed, you have to go somewhere else, which often happened during COVID situation, right? So even during that COVID situation, that the COVID hospitals, if there was no bed, even if we are paying for that, if there is no bed, then the patient cannot be admitted. So there is a rivalry in consumption, right? So these kinds of places like congested toll roads or crowded paid hospital become private goods. The polar opposite, that the mirror opposite, is public good, where there is no rivalry in consumption and no excludability. What does it mean? No rivalry in consumption means if I use something, it does not matter to you, it does not harm you, it does not decreases chance of your consumption, right? So there is no rivalry in consumption. Excludability is the moment, if I use and I do not need to pay anything to use that, then it is a completely non-excludable product, right? No one is being excluded. As long as no one is charging and it is free for everyone, then anyone and everyone can use that. The one is cyclone warning system. The cyclone warning is going on in the radio. It is by the government, it is by the meteorological department, and then everyone who switches on the radio or TV, they are getting the cyclone warning. You are not paying for cyclone warning. Of course, you can say that you are paying the tax and all, but that does not come here. We generally keep it simple. We are not thinking that, okay, fine, we are not specifically paying for cyclone warning. Okay, so when the cyclone warning systems are the cyclone warnings are being being broadcasted or telecasted in the public media, what happens? Anyone and everyone can observe it. They can take the precautionary measures, and there is it's there as you are not paying for that separately, no excludability and no rivalry in consumption. Why? Because if I am availing the service, I am not stopping my neighbor availing the service. If you are availing the cyclone warning, you are not decreasing my chance that, okay, fine, the moment I have got the warning, that means someone else, at least 1% less, are getting warning. No, it's not like that. Everyone. Similarly for national defense, like if I am getting I am being saved by our Indian army, you are also being saved by our Indian army, and there is no excludability, right? And as we are not paying separately for anything as such, at least for the defense causes, and same for the rivalry in consumption, because there is no competition between you and me sitting somewhere else, maybe sitting in Patna, in Kolkata, in Guwahati, in Vadodara, in Jammu, or in Andaman. And it does not matter to any of us, because we all are enjoying the national defense. The other example can be uncongested non-toll roads. What does that mean? That there is no traffic, number one. There is no toll, number two. That means as there is no toll, no one is excludable. You can just drive your car any random road on your village, on your city, on your town. If there is no toll, you can take your car and ride. So it's like pure public good. The second one is uncongested. If there is no traffic, you are not blocking anyone's road. If on 1 kilometer stretch, if there are only 3 cars and 5 bikes, how does it matter? You are not blocking anyone's road. Enough space to drive. So if there is an uncongested non-toll roads or uncrowded, uncongested government hospitals where you are not essentially paying anything, if not the ticket, so these all are pure public goods where there is no rivalry in consumption and no excludability. I will now take you to common resources. What is common resources? Common resources is something, go by the name, which talk about mostly the resources which are common. That means the moment I say that it's common for everyone, so there is no excludability. You are not paying for those resources, but there can be a rivalry in consumption. What is that rivalry in consumption? The moment you have this, say the fish in the ocean. Why you probably hear about India and Sri Lanka's conflict about the fish, the fishermen's in Indian Ocean and Bay of Bengal and all these places. So who will catch fish from which part? So there are always these conflicts. So fish in the ocean is depleting, it is coming down in number because of overfishing or careless fishing or unregulated fishing, right? So what happens when this, fish is a common resource, anyone can go to the ocean and catch fish essentially. So you are not paying any price as such, right? Or if there is a pond, a government, or not government pond, a public pond, anyone can go. A lake, anyone can go and sit and catch fish. But there is a limited number of fish, finite. And if a lot of people are catching fish, naturally there is a rivalry in consumption, because the number is decreasing, right? That will get depleted. The number is getting lesser. So there is a rivalry in consumption. It can be any environmental factor in that way. It can be clean air, it can be clean water, it can be anything which is common. No one can stop me from getting the benefit of clean air. No one can stop me from getting the benefit from clean water. But because I have clean water, I have a river beside my house, I cannot put anything and everything on there. Or because I have a clean a well which gives me clean water, no one is charging for that. And if a lot of people are pondering on that, collecting water from that, so naturally the water bed will go down, right? And so these are the common resources where there is a rivalry in consumption but no excludability. Same for congested non-toll roads, a highly trafficked road where you are not paying anything, right? But there is a congestion, there is high traffic. So the moment you are taking your car on that road, you are contributing to the traffic, increasing the traffic. So naturally you will go like this. Any space you get, you push your car inside. So because there is a rivalry in consumption, but you are not paying anything, that means there is no excludability. Or crowded government hospitals, there is limited beds, you are not paying for the services, no excludability, but limited number of beds. That is why, even if a high number of beds but extremely high demand, so there is a crowding, so naturally in many places, or everyone does not get beds, so they lie on the balcony or on the corridor, and they do not get bed. So we all are aware about these conditions often, right? So there is a rivalry in consumption in terms of getting a bed. The fourth one is natural monopolies, which is also known as club goods. So what are they? When this is just the opposite of common resources, is when the products, the commodities are excludable. That means you are buying those commodities, you are paying for those services, but there is no rivalry in consumption, such as cable TV. If we see that, how does it work? Say you are paying for the cable TV. Say in a club, why this is a club good? In a club, you have paid for that cable TV, and anyone and everyone can come and see. Right? Just think of that. It's a very crude way of understanding, I must admit, but then it works. Like, say in a club, you have got a TV, you are getting a cable connection, a Tata Sky or Airtel or Jio connection, and or some internet connection, and you are watching the football games over there, and anyone and everyone can come and watch, right? So there is no rivalry in consumption as such, theoretically, but there is an excludability, because if the club is paying, then it's basically, if the club does not pay, the cable TV connection is not provided. The same thing for fire protection. Say for in my university, if there is a fire protection, of course there is a fire protection. The moment there is a fire protection, the university is paying for that. They have made all the logistics, right? But what happens on the contrary, if there is a fire, fortunately there will be no fire, hopefully, keeping fingers crossed. So if there is a fire, what happens? We will all get saved, and there is no rivalry in consumption. Because of that fire protection, we all will be saved, and there is no rivalry in consumption, right? So again, theoretically, so this is again, um, the university had to pay for that fire protection, but everyone can avail that, those who are working in that campus, right? So therefore, this is also a club good or a natural monopoly. The other one is uncongested toll roads. Simple. Uncongested toll road is you are paying for that, but there are not many vehicles. So what happens that when you are paying for the services, for the to be allowed to drive on that road, so it is excludable. If you don't pay, you cannot get into that road. Like say nice road, there is a in ICE, the name of the road is nice, and the road is also very nice. It connects different parts of Bangalore from the outskirts. It is like a bypass. When it was inaugurated in its early years, now it is very crowded. It's still a toll road, but in its early years, it was extremely uncongested. So it was used to be a very pleasant drive over there. The average speed is 80, 100 like that, and though the maximum speed is 80, but it's 80 kilometer per hour, and is quite fast. Why you can drive on that speed? That's because it's uncongested toll roads. So that means no rivalry in consumption, but there is an excludability. So these are the four types. I try to elaborate the differences in these four types of goods, that on the basis of rivalry in consumption and excludability. Now, just these four types of goods, and in its basic characteristics, that private goods excludable, as well as there is a rivalry in consumption. Public goods not excludable, no rivalry in consumption. Common resources, there is a rivalry in consumption, but they are not excludable. Natural monopoly, they are excludable, but there is no rivalry in consumption. In a nutshell, this is the you can take a picture or something, but this remember it. These are the four types of goods based on these two conditions and its permutation combination, right? So bringing public good and common resources into one single bracket, what I can say that public good, public goods and common resources both are not excludable. You are not paying any price to use them, right? So people cannot be prevented from using them. It's not that those who are paying the price, they only can use. It's not like that. So anyone and everyone can use, and there is no price attached, right? And there can be both positive externalities as well as negative externalities. There can be both positive externalities, that means benefits, but there can be negative externalities as well, that means cost higher than the benefit. So positive externality means social benefit more than the social cost. Negative externality means social cost is larger than the social benefit. All right. So in these kinds of products, we generally find a problem which is known as a free rider problem. Now, who are known as free riders? Always remember, if you are forgetting what is free rider, remember it. Free rider, that means those who take a ride in your bike, in your car, in your cycle, but do not pay for your petrol, right, is a free rider. That means person who receives the benefit of a good but avoids paying for it. I go to play badminton, I go to play cricket, but I never buy a ball, right? So all my friends are buying the ball, but I do not buy a ball, so I am a free rider. When I go to play badminton, all my friends are buying the shuttle, but I never contribute to buy the shuttle. I'm a free rider. So I receive the benefit of others' contributions, but I avoid paying for that. So generally, in public goods, we often identify these kinds of problems because in public good no one is excludable. So what happens when there is a free rider problem? Then the private market who looks at the profit because they need to survive, right? So if in a particular market there is a practice of free riding, that means most of the people do not want to, they would like to get the benefit, but they do not like to pay for it, right? So the private market players will not be ready to supply their goods in those kinds of markets, because then those people, what they will do, they will they will try to use the product but not paying against it, and their tendency will be, I will use this. It does not matter whether the government is supplying it or some private market player is supplying it. I will use this, but I will not pay for it, right? So now, if the private market or a private firm or a private supplier are not getting its pay, getting its pay back, that means getting its revenue back, it will make loss. The moment it is making loss, marginal revenue, marginal revenue is less than the marginal cost, because they are trying to match the cost with the revenue. If the revenue is being lower, so there is a loss and they will not be able to operate. Only government can bring the remedy to these kinds of problem. So what government can do, they can provide these public goods if and only if the total benefits of a public good is greater than its costs. That means there is a positive externality. And if there is a positive externality, in our previous class we have learned that the government has to take care of this education and health, because more the knowledge, better the health, it is good for the society overall. So the cost the government is paying against giving free education or free health, it is fetching a much larger benefit for the overall society. So in these kinds of cases, the government can be uh, the government can be an influential decision maker, policy maker, where they will provide that public good. Now, how they can cover their cost? They will of course cover it, budget it from their tax revenue. So they may increase the tax for certain people under cess and all, additional some increasing the tax, some additional tax. They may not do that, right? But if they are doing that, then they have a lump sum amount, that is their government revenue. Out of that, they will try to invest for these kinds of products or goods where the public, the benefit is more than the cost. Some important public goods, yes, of course, national defense, very expensive public good. Individuals cannot pay for national defense, especially for such a huge country. Basic research, it increases general knowledge. When the government pays for the research, it can, bring so many, life-changing innovations, such as it can start with COVID-19 vaccine, the cancer medicines, electric vehicles, solar energy, different types of apps, mobile technologies. It can be so many things. It can be nanosciences. Or it can be the social sciences as well, to understand the society, to understand the economy in a much better or an effective way, where the government can decides its policies more effectively, and people have a better understanding about the societal structure or the economic framework of that particular country, which is very important, both for the people when they are exercising their voting rights, as well as for the government when they are bringing the policy recommendations for the people in general, if they have knowledge. That means if the government is paying for it, increasing or encouraging even the poorest of the sections, then it is actually contributing to a higher cause of societal cost, broader societal cost cause. um, the fighting poverty, we all know it can be any welfare system, it can be public distribution system, it can be any schemes for the below poverty line people. So everyone who are under below poverty line will be getting this scheme, so there is no excludability, there is no rivalry in consumption. Basic health and education, it can be for anyone and everyone. I can get the benefit, you can get the benefit, Nita Ambani, Anil Ambani can get the benefit, Narendra Modi can get the benefit, and anyone from the poorest of the poorest section can get the benefits. So it can be anyone who are getting the benefits from this basic health and education system. So just taking an example that how a particular commodity can be a public good as well as a private goods in some cases. Say river water, it is a pure public good. There is benefits for those who stay on the banks. You cannot charge them that when you get water from this river, when you wash your clothes, when you take your baths, when you and when you bathe your animals, your cows and buffaloes in that river water. It's you can we are not paying for that. So if the people in general are not paid for using those river waters, so there is no excludability. At the same time, if I am using, you can use, if you are using, your other friends can use, it anyone who are staying in that vicinity can use that, on the river banks can use the river water. Of course, I will not go to use the Ganges from Bangalore, neither someone who is staying in Amritsar will come to use Kaveri water, right? But there are benefits for certain people, and you cannot charge them for using a natural resources. At least for the river water, there are certain natural resources where you decide to charge. We are coming to that. Incentive. The incentive of the people is free ride without paying. That means I am using this water, but I am not paying for that. That is why, as there is a tendency of free riding, it is mostly operated by the government. The moment private players come into play, they have a profit making ideology, and then they will be operating completely differently, where the users benefits or their welfare can be compromised. So the government does not want that as well. So that is why it is mostly operated by the government. But if there are certain commercial cause, or if there are certain other uses of that river water, such as barrages, so either it is privately owned or state owned or operated by the government, and if it is state owned, if it is privately owned or operated, that is a different story altogether. So who will decides that how much water will be there, what causes this water will be used, whether it will be used for irrigation, whether it will be used for hydroelectricity, whether it will be used to control the flood, whether it will be used for any other causes, right? So it is not for, so and for a particular segment of that river water where the barrages are there, it is not open for everyone's use, so it becomes kind of a private good, right? So it is no more a public good, at least. So they will decide whether something is a who will decide whether something is a private good. Before we decide or determine that okay, this good can be a public good, I first need to identify that who are the beneficiaries. Will they be able to pay if I charge, or they will not be able to pay? Or if I need to charge them, that has to be minimum 500 rupees per month. Are they able to pay for for that particular cause, or pay 500 rupees, whatever cause it can be. So we need to understand that who these beneficiaries are. If I am providing this as free, and if I am not providing this as free, who are being sufferer, okay, whom we are depriving. The next one is determine whether beneficiaries can be excluded from using the good. That means whether they can be charged a fee. If few of them are ready to pay a fee and use, it is good. If the others do not want to pay a fee and they are happy without using them, wonderful. Make it a private good. But if they cannot be excluded from using the good, or they have been using it for several years or generations, or this is where their livelihood is based out of, they do irrigation, agriculture over there, they do fishing over there. Suddenly if I say no, you cannot use them, and they earn a very little amount, and suddenly I say no, you have to pay this much and then use, then you can do the fishing, or then you can do agriculture in this particular land, or use this water for your agriculture. Um, and then that can create a lot of problem in their life. So we have to identify that whether these beneficiaries can be excluded from using this good or not. If they can be, there is a different decision. If they cannot be, it has to continue as a public good. A free rider problem especially happens when the number of beneficiaries is really, really large. There are always some people who will, like say, when riding on a train. So many of these train travelers, they do not buy a ticket, right? Especially on the local trains and all. So they may not buy tickets, or even in the buses it is very difficult to identify that who are not, even if there is a ticket checker and all, it's very difficult to identify who are not paying for the ticket. So why that happens? Because the number of beneficiaries are really, really large. So when the number of beneficiaries is very large, then there can be a free rider problem. Then there can always be a free rider who will take the benefit and without paying for that. The second one is exclusion of any one of them is impossible. That you cannot identify someone that this kind of people should be eliminated, or this kind of people, or this is the person who is a habitual offender. It is very difficult to identify. Then there is generally free rider problem, because then there are people who will take the advantage of this kind of situation, right? um, Public goods, it's a to identify a public good, it's a really difficult job. So what government does to decide on the public good, or to how much quantity, even if they say that it can be a public good, how much they will give, like say in public distribution system, in ration shop. So they decide that okay, for every family per week there will be 1 kg rice. Getting my point? So they have decided that rice will be a public good given through the public distribution system, but 1 kg, or just 1 rupee per kg, something like that, but only 1 kg per family, like that, okay? Or per individual for 1 month there will be 1 kg, something like that. If there is a rationing, there is an upper limit in terms of the quantities, or in terms of the which are the goods. Say the government decides in a ration shop, in a fair price shop, in a public PDS, under PDS you do not get everything, right? They have a limited number of items which are generally offered well in these kinds of shops, or under these schemes. So or say if there is a health insurance or a health scheme, if there is a state sponsored health insurance scheme, which are the surgeries that will be covered, which kind of diseases will be covered. So that will be again determined by the government. So even if certain diseases are being public goods, the rest, or the insurance is a public good overall, not all the services are covered under that. So the government, what do? They do a cost benefit analysis, in which particular components or which particular services or goods there is a higher benefit than the cost. If the social benefit is higher than the social cost, then they can make it a public good. If the social benefit is larger than the social cost, then they will make it a public good. But the problem is it does not have a price signal. We do not know whatever benefit they are getting, monetarily how much it can be. So cost we still can identify, but benefit, because there can be non-monetary benefit, monetary benefit, of course there can be non-monetary cost, monetary cost as well. But getting a price signal is really really difficult, or is challenging. So what government does a rough estimations on these costs and the benefits. They try to identify that these are the costs and these are the people who are bearing the cost, and these are the benefits, and these are the people who are enjoying the benefits, and who should be enjoying the benefits and who should not be enjoying the benefits, if that segregation can be done. So they do a rough approximation, estimation, right? So taking an example, that how much a life worth, against how much a life worth against, you know installing a new traffic light. Let us imagine that there is one road where there is no traffic light, and it is very accident prone, on that particular stretch. But bringing a new traffic light costs the government rupees 2000. What is the benefit? The benefit is an increased safety. So what we have observed, generally, if there is a traffic light, then the fatal traffic accident drops from 1.6% in a particular time period to 1.1%. That means 0.5% cases are reduced because of a traffic light. So the major obstacle to the government is, of course, measuring the cost and benefit. Why it is an obstacle? Because as I say, that the price signaling is quite a challenge, and hence putting a monetary value on a human life is also a challenge, because every human life is priceless, right? They may be young, they may be old, they may be educated, they may be uneducated, they may be doing a good job, they may not uh, be that socially that important, but every human life is priceless to that person, as well as to his or her family. So it is very difficult to attach a monetary value. So what do? We try to put a monetary value based on the uh, how much the court or the government awards a damage or compensation. Like, say, if there is an accident, the government say, okay, I will pay 2 lakh rupees or something like that to the family, or a job to someone plus some cash benefits, so something like that. So based on that particular amount, we will consider that, okay, fine, whether there is a need for so this is the benefit if we can save a life, because this is the price of a life based on this compensation being offered by the government or by some court. And we know the cost is rupees 2000, right? Again, the cost is rupees 2000. The number of accidents have dropped from 1.6% to 1.1%, 0.5%, and we have estimated the life value of human life as 10 lakh rupees, right? Now what we do observe is that the cost benefit analysis says that because of the traffic light, it reduces the fatality rate by 0.5 percentage points, 1.6 to 1.1. If you convert 0.5% in decimal, that 0.5 divided by 100, you take 2 decimals away, again on the right hand side after decimal, so it becomes 0.5 to 0.005. So the expected benefit is 0.005 into 10 lakh rupees, which is the value of a human life, which comes as 5,000 rupees as the expected benefit overall for the society, not for an individual. For an individual, it is 10 lakh. For the society, as the decrease is, or the rate of decline or the total decline in accident is 0.5%, nothing but 0.005 socially for that particular locality or that place, whatever. 0.005 into 10 lakh makes it 5,000. So the cost of installing a traffic light is rupees 2000. The benefit of from that installation of the traffic light is rupees 5,000, and the government should approve the traffic light because benefit is more than the cost. The common resources are again not excludable, and when there is no rivalry in consumption. So this brings the concept of the tragedy of the commons. What is the tragedy of the commons is when a common resources are over exploited. I use the word exploited. That means are used more than the desirable amount. So if they are there can be only 10 persons sitting on a pond and catching fish, but if there are now 30 people, because there is a good amount of fish, there are 30 people now catching fish, naturally the fish will be extinct from that pond very soon, or from that lake very soon, because of the over exploitation. And that is why the number of trawlers on the sea catching fish is restricted. Yes, in some period of the year, especially during the monsoon, or sometimes I guess um, in some period of that year when it's a breeding period for the fishes, the fishing operations are not allowed, because that will not help in growing the number of fish in the water body, right? So I will take a very simple example. Say there is a green patch of land. Okay. I find that, okay, it's a nice green patch of land. I have two cows. I take my two cows to feed there on that green patch of land. Looking at me, Hari thinks, okay, oh my God, it's a really nice land. So Angan sir is going there. I will also take my buffaloes. So he has two buffaloes. He took those two buffaloes. Now there are four animals are eating the grasses. Now Ahmed has five sheep. So Ahmed thinks that, okay, fine, they are getting their cows and buffaloes, so why don't I take my sheep, because there is an empty plenty of grass and quite empty space, so why don't I take my sheep. So Ahmed also takes his sheep. Now James thinks that he has again seven goats, so he can also take his goods on that grazing land, so he also brings his goods. And this is how what happens now. There is an over exploitation, over usage of that particular resources. From the society standpoint, that particular resource, that green land, because of this over utilization, over exploitation, it will not remain green for a longer period of time. What happened, why our climate change? Because we exploited our greeneries too much, more than the necessity. Why our biodiversity is trembling, is shaking, why it is at a very bad shape, because we have killed so many animals in last several years. So naturally, these are the tragedy of the commons. There was no one to stop or to tell that this is not really good, it is not a sustainable development. So what happens? Why this happens? Because the social and the private incentives differ. People are selfish, so they basically think of themselves. They do not think about the society. So when I take my cows, I did not think about who will, I do not know that whether this land will survive for another 2 years or not, to bring my cows again after 2 years, or after feeding the on the grass for the next 2 years. I do not know whether it will be there or not. So now everyone looking at that opportunity are jumping on that, and it is being over exploited, and it will not survive for a longer period of time. So these all are private incentives that I am trying to satisfy my need. I am not thinking about the social incentives. So when polluting an air, I am setting up an industry. I know this is a highly polluting industry, but I want this industry to run because this is my business, and I am not thinking about who are being asthmatic because of my air pollution, or who are getting skin rashes because I pollute the river. So the social incentives are different than the private incentives. So that is why there is this tragedy of commons, where the common resources, because they are not excludable. No one is paying a fee. That is why when there is a negative externality, then the government comes, and then either they decide on that upper limit of the production, or they have some charge, the pollution charge or taxes, the Pigouvian taxes, the Coase theorem, where the society and the producer, they interact. That is the Coase theorem. Number of stakeholders are limited, transaction cost is low. Or Pigouvian tax, when the government has to be brought in to intervene, and then the government decides that the entire external cost can be adjusted with the taxes, right? um, so in those cases, the private incentives, the private benefits are larger than the social benefits, or the private cost, so that is often do not take care of the social cost. So because of that negative externality, this tragedy of commons occur, because the moment there is some taxes, the moment there is some say you know fee that need to be paid for every unit of pollution or pollutants, then it is being excludable. Not anyone and everyone will be able to operate. Or if you are asking for, say, when you are catching fish in this pond, you have to pay 50 rupees. The moment there is this kinds of excludability, then things are better utilized. A park can be highly overutilized. We have seen there was a park in Bangalore, in our neighborhood. It was very dirty. The government restored it nicely, and then people are using it. Now, the moment it was open for all, it is so crowded. In the morning time for the morning walks, or even in the evening time, and especially on the weekends, it's so crowded that it is very difficult to enjoy the beautiful park around a lake, big lake. So it's because everyone is trying to get the private incentives, because it is free of cost. uh, and no one is thinking of the social benefit. They are taking plucking flowers, they are loitering everywhere. So naturally the common resources will be destroyed again if it is happening like that. That is why there is a user fee. And if there is a user fee, that means get charge or something like that, then there will be limited access of that particular property, and there will be limited number of people, and people will be very careful if there is a punishment as well, right? So because of this tragedy of commons, the negative externality, what we find, as I said, a one person uses the common resources, diminishes other people's enjoyment of it, because there is a rivalry in consumption. But too many people are coming, because there is no excludability, right? And then the government brings this regulation or taxes, like I said, PVN taxes, or certain regulations from the government's point of view, that you can maximum produce this many tons of papers or something like that, or this many tons of cement in a particular period of time, and reduce consumption of the common resources. It can be like, say, the park will be open only from 5 to 7 a.m. in the morning, or 6 to 8 a.m. in the morning, and 5 to 7 p.m. in the evening, something like that. So that means not whole day people are using that, and it is not, that is how the exploitation is not too much. And the last option is turn the common resource into a private good, that you charge a user fee. So when there is a user fee, there is an excludability. There is already a rivalry consumption. If there is an excludability, so it becomes a private good, right? So the first thing is that regulate or put taxes. And the second is that reduce the consumption of the common resources as much as possible, and so that the production is also low and it is saved. And turn the common resource, last option, into a private good, right? Some important common resources is, of course, clean air, water, and other natural resources. It can be congested roads, and you see, I don't know about other cities in Bangalore, we see that people are riding their bikes on the footpath, because no one is charging them, no one is punishing them. So it is so stupid that when elderly people, school children are riding on the footpath, and then because of their heavy bikes, the footpath is being destroyed. But you know just because it is congested roads, there is, even if there is a rivalry in consumption, and there is no excludability to ride on the footpath. No one is asking you any question, no one is charging you anything, so you are riding it on, the footpath, riding your bike. Or the fishes, as the common example I have been taking. The trees, anyone can cut the tree. Now there is a rule that you cannot cut the tree um, as per your wish, and other wildlife, right? Killing or poaching on other wildlife. So a simple understanding about you know common resources or tragedy of commons is how certain wildlives are, animals are being extinct. Elephants or rhinos, they are common resources. They used to be common resources. There is no owner, no one privately, you know, elephants in the jungle. I'm not saying elephants, privately owned elephants. So there is no owner. There are numerous number of poachers because that's elephant teeth, the rhino's horns. They have heavy commercial incentive, right? So if they can kill them, they are sold in market at a high price, right? So there is a strong incentive to kill them, but slight incentive to preserve them, because they do not contribute to your economic gain, right? So you do not really find it interesting to preserve them. That what a rhino does to our economy, to our society. Rather, if they die, um, I can, again, private incentive, right? Not social incentive. They are not thinking about the ecology. They are not thinking about the environment. They are not thinking about the animal rights. They are thinking about their personal gain. So there is a very limited or little incentive to preserve them. On the contrary, cows are generally private goods. There are ranches, Goshala, so which are privately owned, right? Where you give your cows, your buffaloes, and the ranchers take great effort to feed them, to maintain them, to take them to for grazing, to milk, to get the milk out of them. So it takes enormous amount of investment. It takes, you have to buy a cow, which is quite expensive. You need to choose a cow, intelligently, so that it becomes economically beneficial for you. Um, so that when the cow is a private good, so there is an interest to preserve them, unlike these elephants and rhinos. So the moment a cow is a private good, then it is not being extinct, it is being it is being saved. The moment elephants or rhinos are common resources, it is going to be extinct, so they are struggling. That is why, if they are they are protected somehow, then they are saved, right? And that is why several rules, regulations, laws are coming, right? So I thank you, everyone. I thank you all for attending my lectures. I hope it helped you. So this is my last lecture, and I wish you stay safe. I wish you a wonderful life ahead, a wonderful career ahead, and the rest of the courses on which is based on microeconomics. I wish that these 14 lectures will give you a clear understanding, so that um, you understand the following lectures well as well. And I must thank Swayam Prabha, and the IIT Madras for giving me this opportunity. I must thank Government of India to for bringing this platform to all of the students, which is being, I can see many wonderful lectures being offered by the best of the faculties across India, and students are being benefited. So there is a high positive externality over here, and it's a public good. So thank you very much. It was a wonderful experience for me. I wish you all the best. Bye.